Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Objective. And today we're going to be talking about the recent controversy coming out of the American state of Florida surrounding the so-called Don't Say Gay bill. We'll explain exactly what's going on, rest assured. And quick reminder, we're coming to London in less than 2 weeks, March 28th, that whole week. There's going to be all type of ARCUK live events. Many of them are free. You're going to want to be in London that week. Trust me. Ayn Rand Con will be that weekend. And then the day after Ayn Rand Con, April 4th, me and my good old friend, Carl Sargon of Akkad Benjamin, are going to be reuniting for the first time in 4 years to catch up and let's just say discuss some unfinished business. It's going to be fun and civilized. All right. Now let's talk about the Don't Say Gay bill out of Florida. I am here with a guy who I don't think he's gay, but he's been called gay many times on the internet. I think many marginalized communities consider him an ally for his compassionate approach. Please welcome Jonathan Honig.
Rucka, I'm so excited to be with you and talk about a really interesting subject. I've got a few visuals prepared. But more than anything, I just want to say there's no one else I think who's more qualified on this topic than you. I mean, not only Rucka is probably most well known for his huge blockbuster from just a few years ago, Am I Gay? I mean, hundreds of millions of people. I mean, then of course he followed that up with the answer, I'm gay. That's 16,000 views. That's just one stream. So we've got Rucka is no one's more out there than Rucka about gay. And then, of course, to our friends in the UK, he followed that up with Europe is gay. Look at that, 500,000 views. Lars is gay. So Rucka's done a lot about gayness. Russia is gay. And this was done to Rucka's credit long before the invasion.
Ahead of my time.
And then KSI, who I had to Google who the fuck that is, he said, you're the gayest gay. So as I said, Rucka has done his research on, I mean, if nothing else, saying gay. So
it is pretty amazing. I don't really like talking about my comedy on this show because I feel like a lot of the audience, it's sort of beyond their grasp or familiarity. But I will say this in terms of the cultural developments, saying Russia's gay in 2009-10 was like very much, anti-PC. Well, it was like considered like, oh, you're triggering the snowflakes in those days, right? But today it's the right wingers who get angry at me for literally the same joke, the same thing. Like, oh, how dare you insult Russia? What are you, a leftist? Ukraine asked for this. So it's always interesting to see how the culture changes, and I don't really change very much. All right, let's talk about Florida for Christ's sake. Change the subject, God.
Sure. Well, I mean, I have a quick background. They're calling it the Don't Say Gay controversy. It's like, once again, anything that rhymes has a ring to it. But the official name, I think, as you alluded to, Rucka, is put it in much smaller font, the Parental Rights and Education Bill. And if you've turned on the news or read the paper, you're seeing a lot of scenes like this, a lot of protests, protect trans kids. This bill is cruel. And, you're seeing a lot of visuals. And more than anything, quickly, I'll say it reminded me of Dr. Peikoff's great argument speech that a picture is not an argument. And that's important because the only thing people know about this is these, as Dr. Peikoff says, emotion-provoking images to attract others to their viewpoint. So when you see people holding a sign with a little child saying, we won't be erased, that's a very moving image. Dr. Peikoff says that philosophical issues can't be understood on perceptual level alone. These images, as he says, seduce you. And, I hope we can actually talk about what exactly this bill is. I have the text out here. I looked it up. In fact, the word gay isn't in the bill, but this, Rucka,
So I know it now. So basically, if I understand, this bill will prevent schools from teaching students beneath a certain grade sex education in general, which includes homosexuality and other, I guess, non-conventional or things that may be difficult for a child to grasp. And on the flip side, many people are angry at that, saying, well, of course, kids should learn about gays and bis and even trans people from any age, because it's part of the world and they should be aware of it. So definitely there's a lot of heat around this topic, many people with strong opinions.
Yeah, I mean, well, like any regulation, it's very vague, right? So we, like in regulation writ large, here's what's actually in the bill, and you hit it, basically on the head, Rucka. Classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 or in a manner that is not age appropriate. So there's kind of their limit in there saying I'm kind of paraphrasing, my interpretation is that anything about sexual orientation or gender identity, and in fact, the Don't Say Gay nickname was created by activist opponents. The bill doesn't use the word gay, and it also empowers parents, interestingly, to sue schools and teachers that violate the ban. So one of the arguments the proponents of it are saying is that gives the ability for parents to basically object, to get a voice in terms of curriculum, and sue them if they think that this is being violated. And people might say, Rucka, what's the big thing here? But look, we know you follow the gay community. You can't stop singing about it. There's been a lot of this stuff lately, right? Like people coming in, I don't know, drag queens, if you will. This is a picture of Little Miss Hot Mess kind of coming into public schools and under the auspices, I was assume of this thing of like, be yourself and don't be. And even in London, this was a headline from not too long ago. The drag queen, the headline is the drag queen's visit to a London primary school taught children's acceptance and empathy. So that's I think the fear maybe is that you're going to get, and the reality, I shouldn't say fear, it's the really reality. You're getting, drag queens with children doing story hour. What do you make of all this? What's your quick POV, as they say?
I mean, so there's two aspects. One is the fact that this is a government school system, which should have never been created and ought to be abolished immediately. Education should be completely privatized, and parents need to make the decision about how their kids should be educated. So that's one aspect of it that I think is fairly easy to approach. It's just like, this is what you get when you have government owning, running schools, and we should change that yesterday. The other aspect of it is like, well, as a parent, what is the right way to have your kids educated on subjects like this? And I don't have the answer to that. Like, I understand both sides. I know it's not politically correct to say. I understand parents not wanting their tiny kids learning about various sexual orientations until a certain age. I completely understand that. I don't know how I would handle it if I had kids, or what choice I would make. It's not an easy one for me to decide. So, I mean, it's a tough one. And it doesn't end there. It doesn't end there these days.
Well,
they're not just gay anymore. They're all types of things. This one's got 35 genders changing constantly. I don't know how to explain this to the kids. So it's a tough one.
Yeah, it is a really tough one. Even ironically for you, Rucka, who has proclaimed himself gay, literally, I'm not kidding, millions of times on the internet. Thank you to our super chatters. They're rolling in. Roland says, I'm gay, cheerful whenever TDO comes on. Thank you, Roland, and thank you for your ongoing support. That really means a lot to us. That makes us gay. Rat Lover says, I can't wait till Rucka comes to London, and I look forward to seeing Rucka and Sargon too. So you want to respond to that? Or that's awesome. You're excited to be there.
Guys, London is going to be a riot. Not literally, I hope. Everyone block out April 4th for the Sargon reunion, and really that whole previous week. There's going to be lots of stuff to do in London.
Yeah, and another reason to support the Ayn Rand Center UK is that they're bringing Rucka, and they're helping bring Rucka and live events and Sargon back to this discussion. It's like we're having this ongoing salon on the internet live, so help us do that. Robert says he's aghast. What if a first grader hears this? Well, that's a good question. This is for Jonathan and his bad words. Carry on. That's for Mary Aline. Thank you for that. Thank you for your generous support. Every day, Mary Aline comes in with a couple of shekels. She agrees with you, Rucka. And I shouldn't say it's a couple. It's a lot of shekels. Thank you for that. She says the whole subject should be up to the parents not government schools. That's exactly what you've been saying, Rucka, over, even 10 minutes into the show.
Yeah, and that's the easier part to address, is just the fact that this is a private sector thing that was almost monopolized by the government. Not monopolized, but certainly taken over, and definitely highly controlled and stuff by the government. But the deeper question, or to me, is like, well, what is the right way to educate kids about stuff like this? And I really don't have the answer. I know it's easy to kind of just make fun of the conservatives and say, ha ha ha, lighten up, you uptight, closet gays. It's easy to say that, but are you ready to send your kids to a school where some 24-year-old recent graduate with a nose ring is going to bring in a drag queen to explain sex to them in first grade? It's not an easy.
That's happening. Maybe that
Mhm.
we that is not a fear. That is actually happening. And it's irony, as you say, Rucka. Well, it's the conservatives, but this is like history repeating itself over and over again. This is some of the protests in just the last couple of years. And it's liberal and conservative. Parents protesting when the U.S. Education Secretary came, students protesting about book bans, parents protesting about book bans, parents were protesting about the McDonald's diet ambassador coming to schools, peanut butter they were protesting about, even should Ayn Rand books be allowed in public schools? And that kind of goes to everything you, Marilyn, and I think the foundation of, what our art, I think the objectivist, if I can be so bold as to say that, argument has been. Now, they say there's more to say, but this is that fundamental question that is not even on the table. Ayn Rand says, what can one person do? I think speak and bring that to the table. That, as you said, people decide if they want to go to Lisa Van Dam's school or not. My sense is she probably doesn't have drag queens come on, but I don't know. But parents make that choice about sending their kids to that school or not. And they're probably well aware in advance if something like that's going to be brought to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Allison with $5 says the schools can teach children at a young age how to be kind and respect one another. That's what schools should be teaching. Well, I don't think anyone's taking issue with schools teaching kids to respect each other, but some people don't want sex education to be taught.
That's ironically, I believe, Allison, what they bring it in under. They say, we're not teaching kids to be gay. We are teaching them to accept others. We are teaching them. So what I'm saying is, from what I've seen, and I don't have kids. Rucka, you've got a lot of kids. I know you've really met them or seen them. Don't even know their names. You don't even know how many exist, but you don't have any that you're taking care of.
Right.
But objectivism, kind of, there's material out there. There's stuff out there. Miss Rand wrote The Company Chicos, which I'm told sometimes I mispronounce. So just look it up. It's available for free. And, Miss Rand, Rucka, you talked about, and I know you've read all of this. So this was you speaking. You've read all of this. Miss Rand answered, I guess, Allison's question, kind of the purpose of, she says, the purpose of education is to teach a student how to live his life. The training needs to be theoretical. I don't want to read it too much, and kind of keep it tight here. But, Miss Rand has talked about this. And she, I think, this is my assessment, she warned about a lot of this. She said the incubators of lethargy known as progressive schools, I think that's what Miss Rand would probably describe this. She said the schools and this type of information are dedicated to the task crippling a child's mind by arresting his cognitive development. That's from Philosophy Who Needs It. And one thing about maybe the transgender issue from Dr. Peikoff, this is from his podcast. Maybe I'd love to hear your perception on this, Rucka. Moves us a little more to this idea of transgenderism. Yeah, to say nature has made a mistake, I am really the opposite gender, and I have to operate to fix nature's mistake and give myself the right body, is an arch example of whim over reality. Dr. Peikoff from a few years back.
So, there's no philosopher alive we respect more than Peikoff. But I mean, sometimes he said things on his podcast or in lectures that we could disagree with, or that I don't think were entirely necessarily correct. So, like, you ever see the movie Milk with Sean Penn, where he plays a gay politician named Harvey
he
Milk?
plays Harvey Milk. Yeah, from San Francisco. Sure.
So I think a scene
I did see it. I saw the documentary too.
Cool. Well, so a scene that comes to mind is that he kind of pressures his whole team, his whole campaign, to call up their parents or family members and tell them and come out of the closet, for the reason being that they vote for us 2-1 when they know somebody in their family or they know someone personally who's gay. I mean, this scene is taking place in the 1970s when there's much fewer people out of the closet. So again, Harvey Milk is telling everybody who's gay, he's saying, come out of the closet because they vote for us to have equal rights 2-1, like much double as often when they actually know someone personally in that. So the whole trans issue, I think it helps a lot when you know somebody personally who is trans. So like I'm friends with Blair White. You might know her from YouTube. And I mean, she's definitely a conservative. Like definitely she considers gender dysphoria to be an issue, but at the same time chooses to live the way she does. It's not an act of nihilism, I don't think. She's truly driven by something positive. But if you never met someone who is trans, you might think it's like this nihilistic thing or that it's whim over reality. I mean, people are complex, so it's not as easy to judge something until you've really seen it and met somebody who is living with that particular situation. So
you're right, and I have to say, Rucka, I excuse me, I didn't mean to allude to the fact that Dr. Peikoff has written extensively about this. This was one comment that I excerpted. So let me just first, so this is not his official position. I accepted one comment out of hundreds of podcasts he did. By the way, this is our 1,000th TDO, but that's one comment Dr. Peikoff made. And as you said, Rucka, there's a lot of discussion in the objectivist movement about this. Now, Jacob didn't say this, I think, but someone said that Jacob says he strongly disagrees with that Peikoff quote. But let me just jump in, and I want to throw it back to you briefly to say, we in the Objectivist Center UK is doing so much to advocate for this type of discussion. We did whole shows about Rand's perspective on homosexuality. We're bringing in a lot of people to discuss these issues. We're bringing Rucka to Europe, who is gay. Or I guess, I don't know, that's what his podcasts have said. So we're doing a lot to kind of bring this issue out there. And, I think that's something worth supporting. And there's no, in fact, there's a lot out there as it is. I mean, there's a great article from Tom Bowden. This is available on the Ayn Rand Center UK, the Ayn Rand Institute webpage. Tom Bowden's a great guy. I don't know if he knew, Tom, Rucka.
A little by name. I'm not sure if I know him. Mm-hmm.
Well, if you ever see a guy at Ocon who's coming up, who's got a beard and he's always playing a guitar late night, that is Tom. I'm not sure if he knew Ayn Rand himself, but he's certainly been with the Institute a long time. He wrote this article. I'm going to excerpt it. You should read it. Parents have the exclusive right to decide what their children will eat, where they will attend school, which morality they will be taught, and with whom they may associate.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, for those who don't know, I am dyslexic, so I apologize. Sometimes I struggle a little bit. You don't have to send money for that, but send money for Rand Center UK. But that's what Tom Bowden says.
Yeah, I mean, definitely schools should be private and the rest of the economy should be privatized, but for proper functions of government that require retaliatory force or what's the word? Arbitration of disputes, contract disputes and so forth. So, I mean, this is what happens. You get a lobby system when the government sticks its nose where it doesn't belong. Now you have special interests. You have competing lobbies pressuring the government for favors or just for favor in I mean, I think favor covers it. And this is and now people are arguing with their community. What kind of community do we want? How are we going to teach our children? Everyone's children are their own, and as long as they're not abusing them or maybe depriving them of like completely keeping them illiterate, that could conceivably be considered a violation of kids' rights. But unless they're doing some short of that, parents can decide how to educate their kids. They can send them to a religious school. They can send them to a school where they're taught.
What is this a product of? I mean, in fact,
Mhm.
Rat Lover, who is a big fan of yours, he says, maybe like you do, he says he thinks it's a good idea to teach about gay and trans people in schools because it might help them to be more accepting when they are older. So, as you said, Rucka, I mean, there's other people on the other side. What did Miss Rand call this? The fact that we have the system where, as you said, people are advocating for do gay in the schools, don't do gay at fifth grade, do gay at, you know what I'm saying? I don't mean to say do be gay, but I'm saying bring these issues in. Miss Rand, I think, saw that coming. What's the term that prompts these types of issues being fought about everywhere? The fact that we don't have a capitalist economy where people would choose, we have something else. What do we have?
A lobby system? Is that what you're fishing for?
A little bit, a mixed economy, right?
Mixed economy, yeah.
Right. I mean, this mixed economy, this mixture of capitalism and I don't know, and
state controls force. Let's call it what it is. Initiation of force. So yeah, I mean, this is what we get. And still, even with all the chaos we've seen in the world, still laissez-faire capitalism is not on anybody's radar. No one will even contemplate that. They're going, oh no, that would be way worse. We're not talking about anarchy. We're talking about the opposite of anarchy, the protection of individual rights to speak and to their own property and to produce property. And education would thrive. And by the way, the answer to what's the best ways to educate kids, I think, would be answered much more efficiently by the private sector. Psychology would be flourishing. Education methods would be flourishing. Understanding, seeing the way that lessons affect the young, I think, would be much more evident with superior expertise and technology. We've basically handed schools over to the DMV. We've handed schools over to the Secretary of State office where you sit in line all day to get your car registered. You know what I'm saying? Do you know what I am saying?
I do. Yeah. And well, let me get on the record a little bit too and invite others. My perspective, and this is certainly not objectivism at all, but my perspective is that things like this should not be taught not only to kids kindergarten through third, but shouldn't even be mentioned in schools at all, not in third grade, maybe not even up till college. And I think that's wrong. In fact, I think I would not only pull my kids out, but I would protest and maybe sue overall. You want to read Marilyn's question while I go fill up on my milk?
Yeah, I think we missed one by Allison.
Get in there.
$5 saying, why would school want to teach kindergarten classes about this? Would the kids really be able to understand? I don't think they would be, but there certainly are people that want to teach kids everything about everything. So that's part of what this battle is about. And this is part of what the various competing factions are debating. Rat Lover with 10 pounds says, if they don't learn about them until they are older, them meaning, I think, gays and trans, if they don't learn about them until they are older, they might be more likely to become homo and or transphobic in some cases. Well, that still doesn't, I don't think it's the responsibility of schools necessarily to socialize these kids. I think, again, what's the point of school? It's to learn how to think critically. Teach a kid to think critically. Teach a man to fish is the saying. And I'm going to be a saint right now. I'm going to be progressive and say, teach a man or woman or a mixture, whatever, some variant of the two to fish is way better than just giving him a fish. So, I mean, teach a kid to think critically. Teach a kid to think critically and watch them become tolerant. I think watch them to judge independently as they enter the world and meet various people with various types of sexual proclivities. Yeah.
Look, I'm not trans. I've never even put on women's clothing. All right, wait a minute. I have put on women's clothing, but you know what? I think the little miss, I don't know, or I think what they'd say, right? They'd say, if you believe in these issues that you mentioned, that's the reason they want to have these issues in. In fact, I'm not going to name any names here, but I have a friend who happens to be a lawyer at a major school or excuse me, a major law firm. And basically, long story short is his kid, when he was in high school, put on Instagram, I'm bi. He put I'm bi and he put, kid is a couple of years older now. He's got a girlfriend. He doesn't talk about bi at all. And I talked with his father, as a lawyer. I'm not saying that means anything, but his father happened to say that among kids in their school, bi is seen as being accepting. It's seen as being progressive. It's seen as being open, and being cis is seen as being backward. So I think there is something here. Now, this is not objectivism. This is not, but there is something here. There is something that I think when kids are brought in this issue, it becomes of something importance. Now, again, this is my interpretation, but the fact I think that schools bring this in at all, I think says to them that this is important, that this is not only important, but it's a choice. It's a choice that you're gonna not only make, but it's a choice that you maybe have to make. What do you make of that?
What's the choice you're gonna have to make?
About sexuality, about not only you're going to have to make it, but you're going to have to make it soon. That's my interpretation. But what do you think of that?
I mean, it's hard.
The fact that they're giving it to a kindergarten, they could be getting a kindergarten saying, "What's this flower? What's that flower?" That's what I learned. But instead, they're bringing in a drag queen and saying,
"Yeah, it's confusing." I think we're seeing a lot of anxiety in young adults that might have a lot to do with them being overwhelmed in school with various things that they were ill-equipped to understand. I mean, look, I've lived in blue cities my whole life, really, my whole adult life, certainly. I've lived in blue cities. I've known people with various lifestyles. I'm a very tolerant and caring person, and I think all in due time. You don't need to offer these things to kids, especially in like kind of an egalitarian way, like saying like, oh, there's no different, like none of these is better or worse than the other, like none of these is more rational or less rational, like just bringing in some crazy story to like, why would, like, my thing is like, why would a drag queen want to read books to kindergarteners? Like, don't you understand, like, yes, there's a place in society for drag queens, but is kindergarten that place? I don't think so.
I mean, no offense, Rucka, but I think you're kind of playing coy a little bit here. In fact, Christopher, who, this isn't a super chat, but Christopher Smith helps us out all the time. He's retweeting us. That's one way, in fact, you can help us. If you're going to be so cheap as not to give us $2. And I got to tell you, Rucka, what I thought we were going to have today is everyone who's ever even listened to the show throwing us £2 or what, a pound over and saying gay, gay, gay. If you really want to help us and you've never contributed before, now's the time. Give us £2 with, that's, I think, the lowest you can do. The least you could do is say gay. $2 check. That's right.
And speaking of checks,
Christopher says that you need sex ed. So what do you think of that? Yeah.
I've never had it formally. Like I've never been to a school growing up where they taught it to us, with the banana and the condom and all that. But I like to think I taught myself, and and I think a number of people would say I learned well, or at least sufficiently.
Well, let me say one more thing, and I only because I remember this from Dr. Peikoff's podcast, and I listened to them all religiously. Dr. Peikoff, I think, and again, this is my recollection, was asked about this at some point. And look, there was literally over 100 podcasts, but I think he was asked about it. And you know what his answer was? Only because I remember this exact quote. What was his response?
It's good.
You should learn it on the street.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all in due time. So definitely don't shame the subject. Don't embarrass kids if they're curious, if they're asking questions or whatever. I mean, there probably is a good age for kids to learn. Maybe that time is when kids start to ask questions. But for Christ's sake, let their minds develop at the pace, at a certain pace. Got Marilyn with $5 saying, most of us have gay/lesbian friends who meets our family and kids. Government schools just make it messed up and phony. Yeah. So, okay. Rat Lover with £5 says, what are blue town cities? In America, that means like more like Democrat voting, which tends to mean like liberal.
Blue means Democrat, red means Republican.
Republican. So what I meant was I've lived in cosmopolitan cities. I've been drawn to artsy circles. You know, I'm a bit of an artsy guy myself. So yeah, like I'm not trying to shut off any alternative lifestyles and saying they should not be allowed to exist, or that I have a problem with them necessarily. It's just, you know, let the kids be kids. Marilyn with $2 says gay.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Then Matt Ratlover with £5. Wait, Apollo Zeus, thank you for £2. Then Matt Ratlover with £5 says, also, the reason I think these kids should learn about gays and trans is because of fear of the unknown, and they should learn sooner rather than later. Well, then, I mean, how soon is the question, right? Like, you have to give them some time. So, a lot of people, in Florida right now are saying that, you know, up until 3rd grade is too early.
Well, I mean, Dr. Peikoff, who someone actually put on the super chat, Peikoff is God. No, they didn't put it on the super chat. They put it on a chat. It wasn't that important because, as you know, people who just put a chat, they don't even exist to us metaphysically, right, Rucka? It's almost like they don't exist.
Who doesn't?
Anyway,
exist?
They said Peikoff is God, but people who don't contribute financially, that's a joke.
To me, they are the scum. I'm kidding. They're still good people.
Someone said,
and you find people on both sides, but our favorite are the super chatters. Speaking of which, Rat Lover. Oh, well, I mean, Wes with $10 American says gay, extra super gay. See, guys, we're not uptight on this show. We don't hate the gays. We like the gays. Some people watching this, in fact, are gay, but many of us, I think, are reluctant to see the way that sex education is being taught, and certainly the government should have nothing to do with teaching it to them.
Well, if you're curious about how, you know, this issue of education, this is what I wanted to kind of get at, is that Dr. Peikoff, God, I don't think he's God, but I think he's really smart. And he was picked by Ayn Rand to be her intellectual heir, if that means anything. He did an entire he did a whole course called A Philosophy of Education, which is available on Ayn Rand Institute for free. So if you want to know about these issues, if you want to know about education from an objectivist perspective. In fact, Ms. Rand said explicitly that Dr. Peikoff is, he's able to speak on her philosophy. She actually said this decades ago in a talk she gave. I remember hearing it. But I just encourage people to pick up that course, Rucka, because I listened to it, and boy, if I was going to have kids, I would think this is really, really useful to me.
Yeah. So the OGs of objectivism, you know, like Rand and her immediate circle, they had a lot of positive things to offer on the topic of education. So any remarks they may have made in passing about, you know, gays or trans people or whatever is not, I don't think, the essence of their philosophy. So what does philosophy deal with? Fundamentals. Objectivism says here are the tools. You know, here's like a flashlight to see. So if what you end up seeing, if you end up learning is that, let's say, being gay is not driven by nihilism, as I think the world basically learned, you know, maybe back in Ayn Rand's lifetime, she thought it was this freaky movement of people that were like at war with reality. And as time passed, you know, people kind of got to know gay people personally and realized, you know, it really is just a sexual attraction. And many gay people are completely rational and in pursuit of a good life. So,
would you say the same thing about trans, just out of curiosity?
I mean, yeah, as time passes, the more trans people sort of come out of that closet and sort of state their beliefs. They're rational. They believe in individual rights. And this is, for one reason or another, this is how they've always seen themselves as the opposite gender of the one they were, quote, assigned. I mean, what do you do with that? You just kind of say, okay, well, you know, I'll respect your rights. You respect mine. Maybe we can be friends. I mean, it's what do? You can't kind of dogmatically shut them out because Ayn Rand had a certain view of sex that doesn't, let's say, line up perfectly with what you're seeing now. So,
and in fact, Robert Naser, thank you for your contribution, your repeated contribution. He says Peikoff is God except on trans issues. So Robert certainly is so there's a lot of discussion about this. There's a lot of issue. Dr. Peikoff said he believes that, again, I'm quoting, I might be micro-quoting, but the idea of transgender as a war against reality, I'm 99% sure that Dr. Peikoff himself used that term. We're not here to talk about whether transgender is a right, but what I wanted to say, and the reason I brought it up, was that we're not afraid to tackle these issues writ large, right? Like, we are objectivists, but we're not afraid to kind of say, well, I don't know, maybe this, maybe that, maybe it's time for that. So your support of the Iran Center UK helps us bring these issues to the forefront and talk about them. Now,
Yeah.
C. Bradley Thompson, who you know, right?
Yeah. I mean, I know of him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, he wrote a recent book. This is a book going back to 2012. He called it education emancipation. He said it was the moral imperative of our time. And now, I really respect C. Bradley Thompson. And I think he said this again years ago. He said the public school is a government-created, government-run monopoly that pays for its operation with money coercively taken from American taxpayers. Who else would say that but an objectivist? Who else is as radical on these issues but objectivism? C. Bradley Thompson said government bureaucrats dictate what is taught in the classrooms and how it is taught. Government schools put stinks in ideas, and this is exactly what you said, Rucka. It invites ideological groups to pursue political power. It enables those who controls the state to force those political views on those who are not. That's the whole point, right? That when you have government schools, you get those pressure groups. And the only answer to this is eliminate government schools, which Mary-Elaine said. And thank you again for that super chat. And thank you to all of our chatters for all of the support and the discussion.
Yes, thank you all. Rat Lover with 10 pounds is thanking us for explaining the blue town cities and red town cities, and suggests maybe 12 years old is a good time to teach, and then adds maybe when they are 9. I mean, I don't have the answer to this, but I know it's getting freaky out there. And so basically, although we have no problem with gays, and we basically are pretty open-minded to learning what the whole trans thing is about, we definitely, I think, sympathize with many of the parents in Florida who are not crazy about kids being taught too much.
I sympathize with all parents, because it really is frustrating, right? You've got to pay for these shit schools, excuse me. But most of them are terrible. If you're wealthy in America, of course your kids are in private school. There's no question. Even a lot of the legislators who advocate for public schools, where do they send their kids? Private schools. And they say, oh, it's for security. But of course it's for even the ones that don't even know send their kids to anyone who's got money sends their. So I am frustrated for them, because, as you said, Rucka, it's not just trans, it's everything else. Do we talk about I don't know, like, what's the thing where you don't believe in even condoms and stuff like that? Celibacy, right? Do we teach them about sex at all?
Abstinence.
Do we teach them is abstinence? Right. I'm sorry. Abstinence first. Do we have Christmas? I mean, a lot of the protests are about, do we bring Christmas into the schools? Do we bring Christmas carols into the schools? So all these issues would be kind of stricken from the record if schools are privatized. And not only that, but like the idea of the market, I believe, would support the schools that are going the right way. Right? Schools that are teaching bad ideas, I think who would support that? So I think it's so important, to paraphrase C. Bradley's ideas, to kind of move this in this direction, to talk about this. And only objectivists even throw it out there that education be privatized. I think we need to keep that idea going, because it's the only thing that will solve not only the issue of trans in the schools, but anything in the schools long term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if we had to change one thing about the world, if we can have one wish, as far as political changes, I think privatizing education would be the wish to ask for of that genie, because that would open the market to various good methods of education that would teach kids to think critically, think first-handedly, think inductively, and that in turn would, I think, increase tolerance within a rational scope, open-mindedness, and the pursuit of truth, which would bring about liberty, I think, in other avenues.
No offense, Rucka, but you're talking to me. You sound a little bit like, anyway,
gay?
Like no, but I mean, I don't know. Anyway, Now, I know we normally don't even give people who don't give money any metaphysical standing, as you said, Rucka, but
True.
Chandler had a really good idea. He says the episode title should be two gay guys talk about trans. Is that true? Do you think that?
Hilarious. All right. Coming up today, we've got at 7 p.m. UK time, it's the Calumet K study group. I forget how to pronounce that, but it's a book group for members only. So non-members, you go to hell. I'm kidding. At 8:30 p.m. UK time, James Valiant will be discussing Ayn Rand's essay, The Chicken's Homecoming. And then at 10 p.m. UK time, it's Artful Tuesdays with Shoshana Milgram and Chikalela and Kirk Barbera. They will be discussing Don Carlos, one of Leonard Peikoff's 8 great plays. So once again, Leonard Peikoff is the GOAT, as the kids would put it. He is the god. I think he'd be the first to qualify his statements on new subjects that are emerging and say
and
more will be known as psychology and stuff like that.
None of this was meant to imply Dr. Peikoff's official comment on this at all.
And he's also made other statements, by the way, about trans people or various people with various lifestyles that are much less that don't sound like that quote and are much more like kind of sympathetic. So anyway, there's a lot to say about Leonard Peikoff.
If you can find those, please
virtues.
draw those to my attention for a side note. If you can find those, please draw those to my attention. Okay.
One last super chat. Rat Lover with 10 pounds says, I think in schools about how wonderful animals are like dogs, octopuses, rats, squirrels, and sugar gliders. It'd help any that want to work with them when they're older. I mean, there's just so many wonderful things that schools could be teaching, but most importantly, they need to teach the kids, I think, how to think critically, how to learn, and that I think will open the door to the everything. And
Dr. Peikoff has a book entitled "Why Johnny Can't Think." That's very short, available on Amazon for like, I don't know, £4 or something. That's a great place to start on all of these issues. Why Johnny Can't Think by Dr. Leonard Peikoff. Thanks, Rob. This was a great episode.
All right, wonderful to discuss these delicate and colorful topics with you, Jonathan.
Totally,
I feel like I can see a big rainbow behind you right now. All right.
That's what we talk about. I love that. We have that open discussion here. That's what we want to encourage. So thanks for all the support for having that.
All right, everybody. Remember, we'll be in London in a couple of weeks. So hit us up in the website link below for more information and to contact us with any questions. Thank you, Jonathan. And goodbye.